is going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday and cheers to making it halfway through the week, and welcome to this week's episode of Trades Lady Happy Hour. For those of you who have been joining in since the beginning, I just want to thank you for your continued support and tuning into these every week. I hope you've been enjoying them as much as I have. For those of you who are new here, this is a weekly live that I have been doing for about a year and a half now to really highlight all of the amazing women in the automotive industries, as well as welding, paint and body. We've dipped our toe in doing airplane technicians and helicopter technicians and all sorts of kind of adjacent trades, but all about women working with their hands to fix and build cool-ish. So this has been a ton of fun. I hope you guys have been enjoying it as much as I have. I think it's really important to get these stories out there for people to hear them, for people to know that all these incredible women exist. So without further ado, I want to tell you about our guest this week. This week I'm going to be joined by a woman named Lindsey. Now, she is of Lady Luck Restos. If you know of her on Instagram, or you can follow along with her on Instagram as well. She has been in the industry for over 20 years, so she's got a ton of experience. Came up doing a number of different things and now really specializes in paint and body and restoration work, but she's also a mechanic. She's done a number of other things within the industry, and I'm really excited to meet her. I've not actually met her either in real life or through social. We haven't talked at all, but I've been following her for a little while, and I'm excited that she said yes to joining me. There she is. Hi, thank you. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So, yeah. Absolutely. So, Lady Luck Restos, is that your shop?
Yes, it's my shop. And I've had my LLC since August of 2019. So I've been here a little over 2 years now, and awesome. Things are going okay. Yeah, just taking it as it comes. And
very cool.
Yeah.
Would you give a quick introduction to everybody, you know, who you are just currently, and then we'll go back in history, and I really want to talk to you about starting the business and how that's been for you. So let's start with just who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm Lindsey Wright. I've got this small little hole in the wall shop, and I'm the mom of a 15-year-old kiddo, and basically, you know, that's about it. My world revolves around the home and the shop, and yeah. I just do really restoration type work, mostly work on the classic cars, and I don't do a whole lot of mechanical work, but okay. I do top to bottom, like disassembly and throw them on a rotisserie and whatnot, and strip them all down and put them all back together and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to the mechanical work, I usually hand that to someone I know. Yeah.
Fair enough. Now, you did do some mechanical work in the past. You had if I remember correctly, you had an apprenticeship doing mechanical work. Is that right?
I did, actually. For a short time, actually for a long time, I worked at a dump truck body manufacturing plant.
Oh, wow.
We built the dump bodies and assemblies and trailers and stuff. So I did a lot of that, factory manufacturing work. And we got laid off one time from that spot. And that's when I went and did I got an associate's degree at the local community college, and it was in applied science of auto mechanics. And so got a 2-year degree, and I graduated at the top of the class, not at the top, but up there with the rest of those guys. But I'll never be a mechanic. You know, it's something I've never really used. I use it very little, so I could probably be a better mechanic if I used it more often. But that's how I got into the restoration world, is because after that program, I got my foot in the door with another guy, but he hooked me up with this shop. And after I was done with school, I had an apprenticeship there at the restoration shop here in town. And then that went pretty well, but then they figured out what I could do in the paint shop. So next thing you know, I'm sanding again and sanding some more, you know. But I've kind of been working on classics ever since then, and that was 2010, 2011. I finished school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, and this is kind of my hometown area. You know, I grew up.
Which is what? Where's hometown?
I'm in. Well, my hometown is Cave Junction, Oregon, which is like a really teeny little town, and we're southwestern Oregon in the mountains and the valleys. And the town I live in now is Grants Pass, and it's a little bit larger. You might be able to find it on a map. But there's actually a really big classic car community here, and I seem to keep pretty steady. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So how did this all start? Because I recall reading and seeing that you kind of started down this industry in kind of the late 90s was when you got started, which is around when I got started as well. How did it start?
Yeah, we're probably the same age-ish, I bet.
Probably, yeah. Cool. What did starting out look like for you? What brought you down this path that you're on?
I never really thought I was a car person, you know? Like, I enjoyed my vehicles, and I didn't have a plan I never set out to be repairing and painting vehicles, you know? But I was in Eugene, Oregon, and a friend of mine worked at a body shop, and he got me a job there as basically the lot attendant and washing cars and vacuuming them out. It was a collision one direct repair shop, so stayed pretty busy, and I was probably, I'll bet you, one of the worst employees, but and I know my boss didn't like me very much there, but from there, you know, I moved on to a detail shop and was doing like RVs, and that's where I learned how to actually buff on a car and use a buffing wheel. And then that was also in Eugene, and then I moved up to Seattle, and I looked and looked for, you know, I went to all the different shops I could think of, and I ended up in Bellevue across the lake from Seattle, and I got a shop at another direct repair collision shop, and that's where I was putting all the pinstripes back on the vehicles and all the decals. And I guess that was when like the Nissan pickups had the big old fat decals down the side of them and stuff. Every Subaru had the wheel arches, you know.
Right.
So I got
so glad that's gone out of style.
Huh?
So I'm so glad that's gone out of style.
I wouldn't even know anymore because I do such little collision work that I don't even know what stickers are on a car anymore.
Right.
Yeah, so that's kind of, I started with that end of it, putting everything back together, you know, and presenting it to being the final eyes on it before it got back to the customer.
So you kind of fell into automotive. You hadn't really planned or set course to do it. You just got a job and then kept going down that path.
I got a job and kept going, and wherever I went, I had work, you know, there was always a spot. And I stuck around, like in Seattle, I was there for about 3 years and at the same shop. And, you know, as soon as they had an opening in the paint shop for someone to be a prepper, I was like, me, you know, and then I was painting by the time I was 21.
Oh, wow.
At that same shop. And I think I was like, I've always kind of been teacher's pet throughout school and a lot of times in jobs and stuff. So I felt I might have been a little favored there, but my boss really wanted me to be a painter. And so more than I even realized I wanted to be, you know, and so that was cool. And then I moved on from there because, you know, a lot of my 20s, I was running away from myself. And
I think we can all relate to that a little bit.
Is that your cat right there?
That is my cat. He every time the camera comes on, he thinks it's for him and that it's time for him to make his cameo. So I apologize. He'll show up a little bit here, I'm sure.
Okay. I've got 3 cats of my own. I'm kind of a crazy cat lady a bit.
That's okay. I am too, apparently. Although I don't like admitting that.
It's okay.
But they're great. I travel a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh, they'll take care of themselves a little bit better.
Exactly. Exactly. So I love that you kind of have been self-taught to a degree, although taught by the jobs that you've worked at, and have such a variety of things that you've done. Like, what a testament to how many different opportunities there are in this industry. Like, to your, like the way you said it, there was always a job for you in this
Well,
industry
there's
doing.
even more to it. After I left Seattle, I went to Phoenix, and you're in
Oh,
Phoenix, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I've been lived in Phoenix twice actually. But
Oh my gosh.
after I left Seattle, so I guess that was like '02 or something, maybe '03, that I went down to Phoenix and stayed with my grandma, and she lived on 29th and Roosevelt,
Oh my goodness.
like inner city.
Yeah, you
It
were
was,
here. I was here then as well. That's crazy.
well, I was just painting bumpers at a little shop that we did repair work for a rental car
Oh,
agency. It wasn't like anything fancy or cool at all. It was just,
great.
putting some white on a bumper real quick, and
Yeah.
but it got me through. And then from there I went on to New Orleans, and I was in New Orleans for a couple of years. And that's a completely different environment than Arizona or Seattle.
Yeah, it is.
The painting, it's very different anywhere you go. The whole process is, you have to deal with blushing in New Orleans, whereas you never deal with anything like that in Phoenix. And humidity, and it's been, yeah, and in all these different places, people do things differently. you know
Yeah.
Things where, like in Seattle, we would replace everything,
Right.
buy it all brand new. And down in New Orleans, we repaired everything. We threw nothing away.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, along the way in the different places, I've learned a lot of different things.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. I think that's so awesome. And I hear people often question whether it's good for your career or not to switch places frequently. Um, but I think there's such a benefit to it. Like your level of experience in all these different areas and handling different types of situations and climates and
Mhm.
different levels of doing the work, whether it's repair at all collision or high end restoration. Like how
Or
can
dump
you go
truck,
wrong?
you know.
Right. Yeah. I want to know about this dump truck because I've not ever like heard about that. That's a whole new thing for me. What was that like?
It was like, I first started at that shop in 2005, and I worked there 3 different times over 10 years.
Okay.
The first time I left, was pregnant. And the second time I got laid off it was like '08. Oh yeah, beginning of '08 or end of '08. And then the third time, my kid was old enough, and I didn't need to work in the manufacturing plant anymore. It was 13-hour days, and I needed to be home. I needed a
Yeah.
little bit more control of my schedule. And I've really found that working for myself, I can leave at 3 o'clock and go get my kid from school, or in the summertime, I can go home and have lunch with her. Or if there's an appointment, I don't have to okay it with anybody. I just make
Yeah.
my schedule how I need it to be mom,
Yeah.
and make it all work together,
I love that. I was going to ask you about that, how you balance being a mom, raising a family, doing that while working full time.
Mhm.
How was it in the early years? How did you balance that? I think that's a question that a lot of women deal with, or struggle a lot of women deal
Yeah.
with.
It's really difficult. It's so difficult. I've gotten better at it over the years. And now that I'm at a point in my career where I can choose what I work on and choose my schedule, I have a lot more, it's a luxury, I'm blessed. But in the beginning, I, working at a manufacturing plant, I didn't always get to take the days off. And then you're working with a bunch of dudes who have somebody at home taking care of their kids.
Right.
And I'm so grateful I was home, in my hometown, because I got my mom, I got my sister, I got my brother, I got everybody here to help with all that. And so there were a lot of long days where I felt like, especially the last time I quit, where I didn't have any control over my kid.
Right.
My discipline, I couldn't follow through because I wasn't there, I wasn't available. So, and that's what pushed me to leave the truck shop the last time, was because it wasn't working.
Yeah.
And then I found that going to school really flowed a lot better with being mom. So when I got laid off from the truck shop, I went to college, and she got to go to school with me.
Oh, nice.
For daycare on campus and stuff like that. And so I was reluctant to even go to work. I was doing side jobs and stuff, but it was really nice to not work. And so I took advantage of that, being a student in the college for a little bit. And yeah, the just basically juggling it with freelancing has been the best. Being able to make my own schedule. Anytime I've had to work for somebody else, it's been hard to juggle with mom, the home life, and the work. Yeah. But with the business here, I try to save some work for home, which kind of sounds like counterproductive, but if I can do a little bit of work on the couch while we're watching like TV with my kid, then that's kind of really awesome. If I can, whatever I got to do on the computer, I can sometimes do that at home. And so
I love that.
Yeah, being flexible like that is really important to me.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's a really important point to make. Like, as a business owner, there's so much more than just doing the handwork, the manual labor. It's all the rest of the crap, and the idea of balancing that out and taking it home, which isn't necessarily ideal, but you get to do it and still be around your family and your child.
Yeah, because otherwise I would just be here so many millions of hours a day and then just neglecting what needs to be done at home, so I'm horrible at doing the desk work stuff, the office work. I'm so bad at it. And I'm definitely learning all of that stuff, the estimating and all of the bookkeeping stuff. And it's a challenge. And I would much rather be tinkering with something, making something shiny or putting something back together, than getting dirty. I feel like I earn my money too when I'm getting dirty. And I feel like I wasted a whole day when I'm just sitting there at the computer, and I guess
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Did it surprise you, the amount of work? I feel like a lot of folks get into business thinking that it's going to be all the doing and they don't think about that other side of things. When you got into it and realized how much computer and book work there was that a shock to you, or were you prepared for it?
I've been doing a lot of freelance work over the years. So before I had my LLC, I was, basically my own business anyway, so I've been for a long time practicing that, warming up to it, I guess. And it just seemed like the next natural progression was to open up shop, because I had to do it. I mean, where else was I going to go? I guess I could have gone somewhere else, but not with what I needed, as far as schedule and being able to work on what I want to work on. Is that a path that you recommend to people who are thinking about starting their own business? What path?
Just kind of starting as freelance and building yourself up and kind of getting practice along the way.
I guess it depends on what your business model is, really. It really just depends on your business model. I think you need, unless you're going to hire a bunch of people, you need to know what you're doing.
Yeah. It's always a good thing.
Right. So, and I'm really grateful I didn't jump in and open the shop when I was in my 20s, and in a lot of ways we make things up as we go. And as we get older, we figure it out, and it starts to come together. And I think this is a good time in my life to have a shop. I don't think that there was any other time in my life where it would have worked out well. But yeah, I feel comfortable with what I know and being able to open the door and say, here, come to me, Yeah.
I think that's so important. I think a lot of people want to rush into starting a business. And I think you're absolutely right. Like, you got to know what you're doing. Like, even if you are going to hire a bunch of employees and not be the one to do it yourself, like, you still need to understand the process and know how all of that works.
Yeah, and honestly, it's never been my hopes or dreams or my intention to be the boss. Just as a painter, you tend to be the boss.
Yeah.
You know, it's a leadership role. And so people treat you like the boss, and then you end up acting like the boss, and, you know, but, and if you're going to be accountable, you have to be accountable, and everything I put my hands on, I have to be accountable for. So I won't know who else to call the boss. You know, I got to be in charge of all of that. You know?
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. Did you ultimately start the business because of your daughter, or was it kind of the natural progression of having all the freelance work and having that build to a point where you knew you could sustain the business, or combination of the both?
I was working at a shop here in town, and we outgrew each other. You know?
That's a very nice way of saying it. I like that.
And it was time to move on. And there honestly was nowhere else I wanted to go except for work for myself. It was the next option. You know, it's kind of like a lot of people around here. There's a lot of old timers around here who build cars in their garage in the middle of the woods. So there's a lot of old timers who have these big fancy shops that aren't actually a storefront for anything, you know. And so I picked some of those guys' brains, and nobody wants to, you know, hire somebody. You know, it's just, they've got their helper they've had for 20 years, and they're just going to grow old together. And so, yeah, it was just really, there wasn't too much else for me to do. It was time for, people were asking for me. So, you know, why work?
When you were talking to these the old guys, right? Were they happy to share knowledge and experience with you, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Most of the guys I know are really supportive of me, and, you know, watch me on social media or pay attention to the cars around town that are done by me and stuff. Like, I'm proud to say that there's a couple of really great, car builders around here who send work to me. You know, like I'll take their leftovers, you know.
Yeah,
no,
why not?
For the most part, most of the guys I know in the industry, the older guys especially, have always been really supportive and treat me like like their daughter, which can be kind of demeaning in some ways, but also I can appreciate it for just caring, you know.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. It's kind of nice when they've got that like paternal instinct with you and treat you like a daughter. But yes, you're absolutely right. Sometimes it can be like, okay, I'm a grown woman.
Yeah.
I've earned my stripes.
Sometimes the only time I've really run up against friction with folks in the industry is when there's competition going on, or they're closer to my same age and they're afraid I'm going to take their job, or, you know, that kind of stuff. So that's the only time that I've ever run into.
That's awesome. Even
supportive people is when their egos get involved and we're in competition for the same jobs or whatnot. And that's a challenge. That's hard for me. I dealt with that at the last shop I worked at with quite a bit.
With the competition.
Yeah, there's always a fight over what. Yeah, the competition thing is a challenge for me. I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
I don't blame you. I don't either. I think that's probably one of the things that chased me out of dealership life. Like the flat rate system kind of creates this, I don't want to help you because that's going to hurt my hours. And the more hours you get, the less I get. It's kind of this idea, which isn't true, that there's a limited pie to take from. Like, it's infinite. There's so much work out there. You know?
And when it works like that, nobody wants to help each other. You know, nobody wants to teach anybody anything. So when you're in a less competitive environment, we're all just trying to work together, you know, and if you succeed, I succeed. You know, if you know what you're doing, then it makes me look like I know what I'm doing, you know, like we got to compliment each other and yeah, yeah. The direct repair stuff, that collision world, or as you say, dealer world, is probably is a little difficult. It takes a certain kind of person.
I agree with you. It's a very, very different world. Although having that experience, I think, is valuable. Like,
Oh yeah,
having had that.
hmm yeah. We're in Seattle. We did 10 cars a day. You know, bumper, fender, you know, door and whatnot, and you're just slamming through it, and you learn how to go into robot mode where you're just like 220 or you know, zzz, and that can be helpful. You know, you just, you know, later on in life, a little speed and, you know, a little productivity is good. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have hopes to grow the business to where you have employees, or are you happy keeping it small?
Well, I'm pretty happy keeping it small, to be honest. I've got one guy who helps me quite a bit, and I've got another guy who helps me a few hours a week. And honestly, I like the way it's working like that. I don't honestly, to find someone who's willing to sand and sand and sand as much as it takes to restore a classic car is really difficult.
Yeah.
People sand for a little bit and, oh, my back hurts and, oh, my elbows hurt. But I got this guy who helps me, and every time you look at him, he's sanding something, you know, so we call him the Sandman. And he's a great helper, but people like that are hard to come by.
Yeah.
And I don't, honestly, growing the business it is not a big dream of mine. I don't know. I'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens, but I don't know how much longer I can do the physical part of it.
Right.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Maybe I've got 10 years, maybe. I'm 42, you know, so I can't, maybe I got 5 years, you know.
Right.
So
yeah, it's a real interesting thing because there's this kind of double-edged sword to it, right? Like there's a value in keeping it small. Knowing that you want that is a beautiful thing. I think sometimes people get caught up in the, oh, I've got to grow it, I've got to make it bigger, like this is what I'm supposed to do, and there is no supposed to, like whatever works for you. But then at the same time, there's the reality of this work is hard on the body.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and honestly, maybe I'm too much of a control freak or something, but to let someone else just take over everything and handle it all and just to have confidence that it's all perfect and then to sign my own name on there
Right.
is, you know, it's tough. And you have to really trust people and you have to work well together. And I don't know if I want to take my hands or my eyes far enough away. You know, maybe I'm a control freak, but
I think you're not alone in that. And I think that's a really I think that's an important topic to talk about. You know, I think a lot of people struggle with that, whether it's on the restoration side or collision side or mechanical side, is, you know, when you're the boss, like nobody is ever going to care about it as much as you do.
Yeah.
And that's just like the reality of being a business owner if you have employees, and how to deal with that. Like how to, if you know this about yourself and you have people helping you, how do you deal with that?
Yeah. How do I deal with it? Well, it's difficult. You do have to have faith. You have to learn the communication thing. I'm learning still, but you have to be clear and let somebody know what you want, but then that doesn't always work. So I don't know. Honestly, I'm learning how to let control over to other people. That's still, I'd rather just take the tool and do it myself. And
Right.
And that's a challenge. Yeah, we'll see how things change, you know.
I like that. I appreciate your transparency too. And like acknowledgement, like we're still learning. When I
Yeah.
was 2 years into my business, I had no idea what I was doing. I was learning along the way, figuring it out. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot to learn.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I'm looking forward to possibly is for Christmas, I got my daughter a little self-contained airbrush kit with a little
Ooh,
mini compressor and little
nice.
airbrushes and stuff. And she's quite an artist, quite an
Nice.
artist, and but she hates cars. And I think that's just the anti-mom thing right now that she's
Right.
doing.
She's how
But
old?
she's 15.
Oh yeah, that's totally anti-mom. Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
phase, right?
and she's been anti-mom forever. I don't know. But she's just like me. So, but she's a really great artist, and so hopefully maybe that can be the way that I grow the business, is just an evolution. And if
Yeah.
maybe she wants to participate in it, that can be part of that. Maybe not a growing, but just an evolution, and I don't know. We'll see where things go.
I like that. You're just
No
along for the ride.
expectations. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great way to be, because Lord knows things throw curveballs at you, and no matter what plans you make.
Well, yeah, we have to adapt all the time. I mean, geez, the last few years have been one thing after the next, and yeah, the best you can do is just take all the tools you got, and then just sometimes you got to swerve, you know, but yeah, just give it what you can, and I think that setting expectations for maybe setting goals are great. Setting expectations and causing resentments and disappointments and that kind of stuff. So I think we definitely need to adapt and be
And
adaptable.
that's a great distinction, and I've not heard it expressed that way. So I appreciate that. Like, set goals, but don't set expectations. That's a really interesting way of perceiving it, and I think that's really valuable.
Thanks.
You really started this as COVID was hitting, didn't you? If you're 2 years in, like,
Yeah, I started August of 2019, and then COVID was beginning of 2020. So
oh my gosh.
yeah, yeah. So and that was kind of in some ways good for me, because I like to just lock the doors and be behind the scenes and doing my work without having to
Right.
be, the face or the one talking to everybody.
Did you
So
find that it was challenging to get work? I mean, I feel like restoration is one of those, that's a luxury, right? And so when people were first starting to lock down, did that go away for you? Were you having to adapt and do other kinds of work, or did that not stop?
no, in fact, it got busier. I think that when a lot of us poorer folk were getting poorer, a lot of the richer folk were getting richer. And that's the imbalance going on in this world right now. But
Truth.
if you got clients with money, they weren't affected by it. And a lot of people got to spend some time at home and spend their money on these projects that they've been wanting or thinking about for a long time. So
Yeah.
I've been consistent ever since even since before I opened my shop, but I've had, 4 cars in here at a time,
Wow.
nonstop. So
That's fantastic. Congratulations. That's a big deal.
thanks. Yeah.
What are because I know people are curious. They always want to know. What kind of builds do you have going on right now? What's been your favorite build? What's going on in the shop?
Okay, well, I've got a 73 MGB that I'm just putting back together. I got
Fun.
it painted up, and yeah, we're putting a lot of new things on it, new headlight bezels and new trim all around it, and new glass and new rubbers all around. And so that one should be finished up here in the next couple of weeks. And
Nice.
then I've got a 78 Chevy Cheyenne
Okay.
T20 that's sitting over there in mud work right now, and
Nice.
that's making it through. It's waiting for some primer. And what else is there? There's a 66 Chevelle that just got put on the rotisserie yesterday, and
Nice.
so that's a big one there. And then what else is there? Oh, there's a 65 Mustang convertible that's waiting for primer too.
Fun.
Yeah, yeah, it's quite a bit going.
Okay, so I have to ask, as a solopreneur, essentially, right? Like you've got some helpers, but for the most part, it's you,
Yeah.
and you've got multiple projects going on. How how do you balance that, or is it dictated by people's budget and their time frame? How does that work?
It's tricky juggling. It is, but a lot of times you get to sit and wait for primer to dry on one thing, so you got to go work on something else. Um, or you're, just it is a juggling act. Certain things get through a certain part of the process, and then sometimes they just sit for a couple of days, and then you do this for a couple of days, and then it's a juggling act. I try not to make anybody wait too long. I did the longest jobs have been about a year. I did
That's not bad.
no. Let's see, the Bronco. I did that '66 Bronco, and it was 12 months, and then, but most of these, like this MG, is just a little 3-monther because somebody already did the body work and stuff on it for me, so, or for the owner. But and then some of them are, like this Mustang, I didn't do any of the disassembly, and I'm not going to do any of the reassembly. It's just me doing body and paint and sending it home. So they're all a little different, and some of them go really quickly, and some of them, have to go through their process, and then you juggle them.
Yeah,
you're watching paint dry over here, you're working over here, and
right.
Mhm.
Keeps things interesting, at least.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference as far as type of work? Would you prefer to do kind of from beginning to end? How is it when you get a project that's already had some work done to it?
It's always questionable when the body work's been done. You never know what's underneath that primer, and sometimes you peeling the primer back and the primer's on top of shine, and that's not supposed to be. So every job is different. I love all aspects of it, and I equally hate all aspects. But like this MG, I have a lot of fun doing all the little tweaky little finishing, polishing this little knobby and putting it all together. That's a lot of fun. I enjoy that. But I also enjoy the jobs that I don't have to put together at all, because then sometimes it's nice to not have to figure that out.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's the fun part about restoration work in general, and I'm admittedly very new to that world, but I feel like you never really get bored because you're always on to like something different, and it kind of keeps things like, I don't know. I have all the respect in the world for people who do the same thing within restoration all day long, like just blocking or just assembly. Like I like that it switches up and that you're kind of doing it front to back.
Yeah, it keeps it interesting. It allows you to see the whole process. It allows you to see the whole the forest and the trees. That was the hardest part for me at a collision shop, and the hardest part for me at the manufacturing plant was the redundancy. And it's just another Honda, or it's just another dump truck, it's just the same thing over and over and over again. So it's great, and it's something new, and it's cool. It might be a lot of hard work and dirty and not always fun to get there, but once you get to the finish line, it's pretty awesome, and
it's super rewarding when you see what you've made with your own hands. There's nothing like that, I don't think.
And it's not even that. It's more like most of these cars I'm doing are stories. Like the Chevy pickup I have is the guy's dad's. And so he doesn't want it to be custom or anything. He just wants it to be just like how it was.
Yeah.
And he tells me stories about his dad while we're sitting there talking about it. And
I love that.
And
it is.
That's what it is. And when you get to be part of something that somebody's dreamt about their whole life. I've always wanted to do this car, you know, I've always thought about this, or, you know, that's really where the satisfaction is. And then when they see it, the response to you know, it's not even necessarily how cool that car is, it's how cool it is to that person.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's so true. I love the people aspect of it. And that was the biggest struggle for me in working for somebody else, is I didn't get that part of it, right? You weren't necessarily dealing with the customers and hearing their stories and getting that personal side of it. So I definitely relate to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I never really liked the customer service side of it before, except for that, you know, like this, that's where it's rewarding. Yeah.
Absolutely. I got to ask you, way back when you were first getting in, because at least for me, the late 90s was not very accepting of women coming into the industry. You've spoken very highly about your experiences and people in the industry being really supportive of you. Was it like that way back then? Have you noticed a shift or a change over the years?
I mean, people always treated me like a girl, which is different. I wasn't always one of the guys, you know. I think that you find the right people. I found the right people, you know. Not everybody was supportive, but there were certain people who were in the right position in my life who were supportive. You know, maybe everybody else at that shop hated me, but Ray liked me, you know, and, or, you know, or even in New Orleans, same thing. It doesn't, you know, as long as it doesn't matter what the haters say, right? It doesn't even, to me, they don't even exist. You know, as long as you got the one or two people, you got the network of people who will support you, the other people don't matter. Just don't even pay attention to them. So maybe they were all there and I didn't even notice half the time. Who knows?
So this has been an always thing. This isn't something you developed into, the not caring what anybody else says. Like, did you kind of always have that attitude, or did it develop over time?
Oh, I always kind of thought I was pretty badass. So
I love that. Well, you are totally badass. So
thank you. Thank you. You know, you learn if you want to, I don't know, maybe I don't feel like I ever really had a choice, but if you just want to be your true self, you just got to follow your heart and follow your dreams or whatever. Yeah, to hell with what other people think, you know.
I love it.
Yeah, you gotta.
And I love that you had that all the way along in the process.
There's been lots of times where I totally doubted myself, where I thought I'd never wanted to do this again, and I hope I never have to paint anything else again in my life, or maybe I made the wrong choice coming into this industry, or especially with the mechanics, like, you know, am I in the right spot? Is this even where I'm supposed to be, you know? And I've struggled a lot through it, but I think that I just kind of plow through it. You know, and you eventually you work through it, and you kind of keep your game face on, and you know, try to keep your self-talk in the good spot, you know, and believe in yourself a little bit. And,
yeah,
you know,
that's so important, the self-talk, right?
Yeah.
because it always generally is ourselves that get in our own way.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you acknowledging that you did have those times, because I think anybody who says that they haven't is lying.
Yeah. And yeah, there was lots of times I wanted to quit, and there's a couple times I did quit, but the thing was that it was always there for me. Anytime I turned around, somebody was like, hey, you want to paint this? Hey, you want to paint this? You know, or if as long as I had my tools, I always had work. And even, you know, I go to a new town, I moved around a little bit in my 20s, and everywhere I went, I just had my tools and I had work. So for most part, I stuck with it because it was good to me.
Yeah. You
know, maybe the challenges along the way, those were there, but I always had a paycheck and I always had a job, and, you know, so it's been a love-hate relationship, but
yeah,
it's always been there for me.
Yeah. All you parents out there, I hope you hear that, right? Like, she's always had some place to go, and that's huge. I think that's one of the biggest assets and benefits of getting into these trades, especially these days, is no matter where you go, you had a job possibility, right? You had something you could do.
Yeah. And I'm really considering, you know, once my kid turns 18, I might have some options, you know, about where I might adapt.
Yeah.
Or so I'm thinking daydreaming about, you know, working in my flip-flops in Hawaii or something, you know.
I was going to ask, what are you daydreaming about?
So, yeah, we'll see what the future holds, you know.
Any daydreams about doing anything besides automotive, or is it always, do you have any aspiration or desire to do something different?
Mostly my desire and aspiration to do something different at this point is basically just trying to find a way out, because I'm aging out, you know, physically, you know, I won't be able to do this much longer. So then I consider, well, that's not going to really be my retirement age.
Right.
So what else can I do? And I don't know. I could go work for like, you know, a paint company and, you know, do something like that. I don't know, but we'll see.
Interesting.
But when I was a kid, I think I wanted to be an archaeologist.
Interesting.
Or an entomologist. I really was into bugs and rocks and stuff. And
I love that. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. So, I mean, you know,
I can see that. Yeah.
I'm not sure if I take that as a compliment or not.
You're thorough. You're thorough. That's good.
Okay. I like that spin. That's good spin. I love it. If you could, I mean, we're getting close to the end of our hour, and so I don't want to keep you longer than I know. You're super busy, and I want to appreciate your time, and I so appreciate that you're spending this time with me. I always like to end with, you know, if you could go back to your younger self and have a conversation with her and tell her anything, you know, and this obviously applies to any other women who are out there, or men, who are thinking about a career path like this. Or maybe even it's outside of career and it's just life in general. Do you have any advice to the younger you?
And advice to the younger me might be different than my advice to the younger human otherwise, you know.
Then let's do both.
I spent a good portion of my younger years drinking and using. And so much of my story, although we haven't even talked about it, is a lot about recovery. And so to say to my younger self, I'm not sure exactly the words I would use, but I would, well, maybe I would just tell myself to lighten up a little bit, you know, and try to do things a little differently, maybe. But, you know, if I hadn't gone the route that I went, I wouldn't be where I am today. So
absolutely, you know,
true. But advice to the younger women out there, in the getting started is, I would say, it's hard to say it without being like anti-feminist, but try to you got to have a thicker skin, you know, and you got to see the value in yourself. You know, I think women and men are very different in ways where men assert their value, and women have a harder time doing that. And because we have a harder time seeing it in ourselves. We might see it in other people, but we have a harder time seeing it in ourselves. So I would say to the younger gals out there is to believe in yourself and keep trying, you know, and if something's not working, then step back and take a look, you know, think about things and take a deep breath and assess your priorities, you know, and maybe what you're worrying about isn't even that big of a deal, you know, in the whole grand scheme of things. So I think that, I think there's a lot of room for us ladies in here in the industry, and that there are a lot of allies. We have a lot of allies in the industry. And I say that find your allies and stick with them, and don't be afraid to speak up, and don't be afraid to ask questions, you know, ask questions. And if somebody's going to not give you an answer or give you the wrong answer, then find somewhere else to work, because we all need to be building each other up and supporting each other, whether we're men or women or, so yeah, I'd say just keep at it.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen to all of that. Like fantastic advice. I love the acknowledgement of how men tend to assert what they know and women tend to not even see that in themselves, and to believe in yourself. That's valuable. And everything that you said, fantastic advice. I hope you guys were listening out there. If there's any young folks, male or female, getting into this world, the automotive industry, really fantastic advice. I want to thank you so much for sharing your story, sharing your experience and your insights. Everybody who's watching, make sure you tune in next week to meet another awesome woman. And next week just happens to be my birthday. So,
Happy birthday. Yeah.
Thank you. So with that, we're going to sign off, and I'm going to wish you guys well. Be good to yourselves. Be good to one another. And I will see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Lindsay.